So let's get started. Welcome in everyone today. My name is Susan. I'm a co-founder of the U of T Trash Team and program lead for our volunteer engagement and community programs. We're so excited to introduce you all today to our first webinar as part of a larger series, looking at some of our pollution prevention projects. Over the course of this webinar series, we'll cover each of the 4 topics you see on the screen. Today, we're beginning here with single-use foodware, and for the remaining topics, we'll share more details on how to join at the end of today's talk. You can go on to the next slide, please. I would like to first say that it's very important for us to take a moment to recognize the lands on which we are gathering. And we acknowledge the diverse and unique groups of Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. And in our local work, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. And so we acknowledge Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit and William treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. And we have people here from all over, so we have a resource that Chelsea will put into the chat, which is a great starting point to learn a little bit more about some traditional territories you work within. And I'm certain many here today are already familiar with this resource. And so we're all sure you're keen to get started on the topic. And some have already shared this information, but we'd love to hear a little bit more about each of you and take a moment just to get a sense of what your motivations were in joining this topic on single-use foodware. You can either answer both or one question here. We're simply looking to get a sense of who you're representing today, but most of all, what are your motivations that brought you to today's webinar? So we'll just spend a few minutes to check in to see what people have to share. It always gets us excited to hear what you're looking to learn before we get started with that component. So I'm going to take a pause as everyone thinks, and just type it directly into the chat would be wonderful. Okay, I will read a few of these out. I'm sure there'll be a few similarities. So looking to reduce single-use waste, specifically in the city of Toronto. Always looking for an opportunity to divert waste. That's amazing. So are we. Oh, and I see a note here about the upcoming World Cup in Toronto. That will be definitely a big event with a lot of opportunity for waste diversion and reusable. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for sharing that. A general just looking for promoting ideas for how to promote reusables in the public. Looking to how to connect with newcomers. Okay, everything's coming in right now. From a personal and professional experience. Oh, I got to go back up. Everything's flying in. So I won't have the chance to read out all of them, but as we continue on with the rest of the presentation, I encourage you to have a look at the chat at all these wonderful responses. We certainly have a good showing from Toronto, but I also see mentions of groups here from Florida, the city of Victoria in BC, and some other locations as well. So I imagine we've got a really great different perspectives from different areas on this similar common topic. Okay, so you can go on to the next slide now, Rafaela. So we just, again, want to take the opportunity to thank you so much, then express how happy you are to have you here. And before we get into the topic more closely, we'd just like to briefly introduce our organization to help provide some context for this important research. We formed as the U of T Trash Team in 2017 in collaboration with the Rockman Lab here at the University of Toronto. And we're a science-based community outreach organization with this shared goal to increase waste literacy as a way to reduce plastic pollution. You can go on to the next slide. And in this work, what we do, it is supported by a dynamic team of volunteers, students, early career researchers, both in and out of the university. And the programming that we do is led here by our core staff members, as you see pictured, myself, Chelsea, who's behind the scenes doing some tech, Rafaela, and Hannah, and each highlighting our main work streams of solutions-based research, community outreach, education, as well as on a more international scale. Hannah helps manage our international trash trap network, which is worth looking into as well. Okay, so let's go into the next one. And just to contextualize even further for today's webinar, through all that we do, scientific evidence provides the foundation for our work. Within our solutions-based research, we focus both upstream and downstream. And for those not familiar with those terms, upstream is simply referring to those sources of pollutions up the stream, whereas downstream is targeting items once they've become pollution. So we use these downstream solutions, and this includes trash traps we monitor along the Toronto waterfront. And this helps monitor different types of plastic pollution we're finding in Lake Ontario. And that data then informs the work upstream, otherwise known as our pollution prevention projects. And these projects are each aimed at preventing a different source of plastic from becoming pollution.
All right.
So we'll go to the next intro, which is what brings us here today. So we're talking about a very common item we find downstream, single-use foodware. I'm sure many of you have seen that, and we'll explore some potential solutions to this source of pollution. Rafaela is going to join to share results from a pilot study we conducted with local food service businesses. And then we're going to jump into a panel with some amazing speakers you'll get to meet very soon. And then before I turn things over to Rafaela, I'll work on the next slide, I just want to thank and acknowledge the research that we're presenting today was carried out, not just by us, but through collaboration and support from many groups, but specifically I'd like to thank the Toronto Environmental Alliance, Reusable Toronto, Partners in Project Green, as part of Toronto Region and Conservation Authority, as well as Environment and Climate Change Canada. So thank you all very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rafaela to lead us through today's talk. Go ahead, Rafaela.
All right, thanks, Susan. I'm Rafaela and from the UFT Trash team, and it's a pleasure having all of you here today. So thanks for joining us. Today, we will share findings from our pilot study, providing an overview of potential outcomes from waste reduction policies, and we will explore the challenges and opportunities food service businesses face in these endeavors. So following a short talk from me, sharing some results of our pilot, I will then lead a panel featuring those incredible speakers. We are pleased to welcome here today Metab, the co-founder at Orange Coffee, Jody, the owner from Bindia India Bistro, both participating in our pilot, Megan, founder and CEO of Supply, and Emily, a senior campaigner with the Toronto Environmental Alliance. Together, they all share a wealth of knowledge and creativity in the world of sustainable foodware practices. And we're looking forward to getting to know them a little bit more today. And we will save time for a final Q&A at the conclusion of the panel, where you have a chance to ask questions out loud or in the chat. But in the meantime, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please add those to the chat. And if we can answer them right away, we will do it. Otherwise, we will save it for at the end. And now I would like to share a little bit more about our pilot. But first, let's start with the problem. In Canada, half of our plastic waste comes from single-use packaging, including foodware like utensils, cups, and containers. And only 9% of the plastic waste is recycled. Here in Toronto, a litter audit found that 26% of large litter items were foodware, highlighting the issue that we have in here. Meanwhile, various policies are being tested and implemented in different municipalities in Canada and around the world to promote reusable alternatives and reduce single-use foodware. This includes accepting customers to bring their own cups and containers, provide returnable takeout services where customers can use it and then drop off their foodware later, implement reusable for dining, or providing accessories only by request. Knowing the problem about single-use foodware and to inform policies, the UFT Trash team and Toronto Environmental Alliance are working together since 2021 with this overarching objective to understand the challenges and opportunities for local businesses to switch from single-use to reusable foodware. We have learned a great deal these past years, including that businesses are interested in and willing to shift to reusable foodware, but need guidance on how best to accomplish this. They also need practical support. We also learned that most customers support actions to reduce single-use foodware, but few of them are actually participating. As part of another project we are working on, we want to measure the impact of these policies. We adapted a model from US to the Toronto context to analyze the potential impact of different policies on waste reduction. Using our data collected in previous years from businesses, we calculate the average number of daily transactions, the percentage of takeout orders, and types of single-use foodware they use it. We then modeled scenarios like customers bring their own cups, business offering returnable options, or using reusable foodware for dining. We tested this model in Toronto's waterfront area. For the 93 food service business in this area, we found that switching to 100% reusable cups and containers for takeout would reduce over 10 million single-use items per year, or 178 tons of waste. Switching to reusable foodware for dining at fast food restaurants would cut more than 7 million items or 75 tons of waste annually. So based on these findings, we decided to test on the ground and conduct a 3-month pilot project to support 6 businesses to adopt and promote reusable practices, and also to document their challenge, because we want to learn more about this. So we aim to implement 3 practices: bring your own, returnable foodware for takeout, and reusable foodware for dining. In the end, we tested 2, BYO, where customers bring their own cups, and returnable foodware for takeout. For businesses starting a returnable takeout service, we covered the expenses during our pilot. Once the business were on board, we gathered data on single-use foodware amounts, costs, and challenges before and after the pilot. We also offered a guide for staff and educational materials for customers. And one thing that I want to mention is that recruiting business was difficult. So for the BYO practice, we partnered with 2 businesses that already had it in place, but wanted to increase customers' participation. And here we have our 6 food service businesses, and we are very thankful for them. UB Social and at Orange Coffee wanted to increase the customers' participation and bring your own cups. Bindia India Bistro, Papadum, and Slayer Burger introduced returnable containers for takeout, and Jessica Croissanterie started returnable cup for takeout. We then created a tailored guide for each staff business and also posters for customers. After that, we had a social media campaign where our research assistant, Maitri, created different reels and posts sharing about each business, the problem with single-use foodware, and call for actions. We observed a small increase in the BYO, bring your own participation rate, which went up from 2.5% to 4.2% at one of the 2 food service businesses. Regarding the use of returnable foodware for takeout orders, there was a slight increase, but it remained consistent. The participation rates for the adoption of returnable containers for takeout ranges from 0.01% to 0.8% among the businesses. In general, while the uptake of these initiatives by food service business was low, as you can see, many reported that customers were reading the posters and asking about them, leading to more conversations between the customers and the staff. Similar engagement was reported with social media posts and reels, indicating that customers are interested in these initiatives. The 6 businesses together successfully prevented the disposal of 884 single-use cups and 884 cups lids throughout BYO practices, as well as 208 single-use containers, not including the lids, during the project. Even with low customer participation, These numbers highlight the substantial potential for waste reduction when sustainable practices are adopted. For example, when extrapolating these figures across all 6 businesses, assuming the 4 restaurants raise their adoption of returnable foodware for takeout to 5% of the takeout transactions, and the 2 coffee shops boost BYO participation to 20%, we could prevent the use of over 22,000 cups and 22,000 lids and over 10,000 containers during a 12-month period. So through interviews, we explored the business's perceived challenges. Before pilot, one owner was concerned about customers bring dirty, reusable cups, and this happened, and the owner managed by rejecting or cleaning them. Another was worried on how to educate Uber Eats customers about returnable containers due to app limitations, because the owner really wanted to have a face-to-face conversation with customers. One business was concerned about food arriving cold in the returnable containers, but this didn't happen as food quality was maintained, alleviating their initial concerns. So post-pilot interviews showed business were pleased with the returnable takeout service, finding the containers easy to use. However, some business faced challenges related to operational adjustments. For example, one restaurant mentioned that sealing the lids was time-consuming and required changes to their kitchen workflow. And just for context, restaurants have the option to offer returnable container bins for customer convenience. One business pointed out that the absence of returned bins at their location made it harder for customers to return containers. On the other hand, a business with the return bin noted that customers sometimes mistakenly used it as a trash bin. Concerns about customer willingness to pay for returnable containers also surfaced, as one of the companies offering the service charges a small fee per container. Lastly, before pilot, one business had expressed concerns about low customer participation. Afterwards, all owners noted that participation in both BYO and returnable for takeout programs was lower than expected, emphasizing the difficulty of changing consumer habits. The pilot program aimed to help food service business reduce single-use foodware. At first, it was challenging for us to get business on board, but once they adopted the new practice, they found them very easy to implement. This shows that incentives or policies are needed to drive change. Initially, regulations could target larger chains or focus on one item at a time, such as a cup or containers, before expanding to other types of foodware and businesses. Customer participation was low, indicating that changing habits takes time and ongoing efforts like improving convenience, increasing incentives, and providing education are necessary. Despite the low participation, we were able to divert close to 2,000 single-use items in 3 months. So we see a great potential on here. To make reusable takeout service mainstream, we need to increase their availability, accessibility, and ease of use. This can help customers normalize these initiatives. We found that customers pay attention to our promotional material and discuss the program with business owners and staff. So ongoing engagement and educational are likely essential tools to help overcome initial resistance. Finally, future pilots should allow more time for setup and relationship building, as longer timelines may lead to better participation and results. For example, Supply, the returnable container company, shared data from the 3 businesses they served, and it showed an increase in orders in the orders in the 4th month of implementation after the pilot, which is very promising and what we are expecting to happen, or we wishing that happen all the time. So that's we would like to share with all of you. And thank you so much for listening about our pilot. And now I would like to invite our panelists to join the conversation. And before we dive into the questions, it would be great if each of you could briefly introduce yourself. So here we could start with Metab. If you can open your mic and share a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm the owner of At Origin Coffee. We started in 2019, more than 5 years. We are experimenting these reusable cups. Thank you for inviting, and I'm very proud of you. You are initiating this program in Toronto. Thank you.
Thanks for coming today. Jody, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jody. Last name is Kapil, and I'm from Bindia Indian Bistro. I was approached for this. I really love the motivation in them, and I was always not in favor of using plastics. So I thought it was a great initiative by these students and this team to make a change in the city, in this province, in this country, and worldwide. So I think we need to bring in city officials to make it official not to use plastic. And I think by doing this, we can really, really do what we dreamed about. So here we go. Thank you for bringing me on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan, would like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me here. I'm Megan Takeda Tully. I'm the founder and CEO of Supply. We provide reusable packaging, a reusable packaging program for restaurants to offer predominantly through online ordering channels. So through some of the apps, both in takeout and corporate catering. We also, through this program, offered an in-person ordering option as well. And I'll save comments for later, but can share some of the learnings from our perspective out of that and kind of what we're doing with them as well. But thank you for having me here.
Excellent. Thank you. Emily, would like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Emily. I am the waste campaigner for the Toronto Environmental Alliance. We've been working with the U of T trash team for a number of years now, and a number of other reuse champions across Toronto, trying to sort of promote the idea of moving away from single use towards reuse. And it's been really fun to be part of these research projects. I'm excited to talk about what these businesses have learned and what also we think our governments can do to help advance this. Thanks.
Thank you. So now that we all been introduced, we can start it with the questions. I would love to start this off with a question for each of you and the implementation of encouraging reusable foodware practice. So let's begin with Metab from At Orange Coffee. I have a couple of questions and I hope we can go over all of them. Metab, before participating in the pilot to increase BYO participation among customers, your coffee shop was already actively engaged in various waste reduction initiatives. Could you share some examples of these initiatives and what motivated you to implement them?
So it was from first day when we opened from the shop. We started in first day because I always hate to use plastic, not to use, also to create a waste. So it was our personal life to be careful about it. When we are open this shop, the establishment is also for dining. And of course, we can't regret takeout. But we choose paper cups, even for ice drinks. even the paper cups expensive than plastic. At the beginning, we didn't use any plastics. If we need to use takeout forks, we choose the wood ones. We try to do our best. And just coincidentally, we order dining cups, which are made with husky coffee husk. Husky cup are made from coffee husk, which means another waste product, waste reduction for us. Then I learned that they are using this reusable cups program in Australia after we got these cups. And we try to sell customers and reuse them, and we put a discount also when they bring their each reusable cups. It doesn't have to be husky. And I was willing to share this all the coffee shops in Toronto to do this. It was my dream when I learned it. Then also I learned that in Germany, LST start this in 2016, start to make this program. So then COVID came. We even couldn't accept any reusable cups. So this was my dream, and you came, and Muse Cup starts a program in Toronto. It's always welcoming to help you and to environment.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing what you are doing. Try since the beginning, not using plastic and using as minimal single-use foodware as you can. So thanks for that. So I have now a question for Jody. In the case of your restaurant, we launched the new initiative for returnable takeout containers. I would love to hear about your experience with implementing this program and the success you encountered.
So what I did, since the tiger is out of the cage, during pandemic, we never used to have that much takeout before COVID. It was dine-in, or people would come from the neighborhood and bring their own containers. And we actually used to offer them free dessert for their initiative. This is like, we have been open for 11 years, and I always promoted this because it cut my cost, plus it's an awareness on that person's end as well. So we offered them free dessert for that, or free appetizer or something, so that they keep doing it, because it just needs one person to bring a change, and then one person brings along another person, so you make a team. But during COVID, it was all takeout, and that's when like the costs of production, everything like went up too, because you are making the same amount of money, but then you are buying these plastic containers, and the price went up from $27 to $45. And it hurts your feelings too, that this plastic is going to cause damage, which we're not able to see right now. So it will be 10, 15, 20 years, or maybe somebody's pregnant and seeing this in the child, or maybe that child is growing and later on you see those plastic effects using plastic. And so we tried it by that. But then when I was approached, we started using these containers. What I did, I cut down delivery apps, DoorDash, because we could not promote it on their end about plastic containers, and we did not receive any order. So we cut down DoorDash delivery, so that people, Uber came on board, and then through Uber you're able to give people an option to use reusable containers. And then we talked more and more about these containers to every customer too when they come in for takeout. And when they make a phone call for takeout, we always offer them, again, the same offer, free dessert or an appetizer, so that they can bring their own containers. Sometimes you find it challenging that they do not want to pay extra money. And I think this is where I find it challenging, because they think it's upfront, but even though they are going to get the money back once they return the container, but they do not see that. So this is where I thought maybe we can bring the city on board and make this big change citywide, where it's compulsory. Just the way plastic bags are not there anymore, we have to pay for those reusable bags, 55 cents each or $1 each if the size is bigger. I think by involving the city officials, we can make this change happen on a bigger scale. And I'm happy
Thank
to be a part of this project.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yes, whatever I can do to reduce the plastic, I will go to any extent to do that.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I think you mentioned a lot of great topics here. First, both of you share about how COVID changed the restaurant scenario. And this we heard from many restaurants in the city about how now customers are more rely on a takeout than before. And then you also mentioned how sometimes customers, it is difficult for them, and how app can you are the one of the restaurants that really like the all one-on-one and face-to-face talking with the customers, how to engage with them, which is also something that we learned that it can help customers change their mind and start to think about reusable containers. And I will ask Megan about this as well. And the third topic that you mentioned is about how plastic we can try to make this, like, if you are using reusable, that should be like mandatory. And then maybe we can ask Emily later what her thoughts about that in terms of policies. So thanks for sharing this. And Megan, I want to ask you, based on your past research and feedback from businesses involved in the returnable foodware for takeout, we have learned that convenience is key for customers' participation. What strategies do you think could encourage more customers to take part in these sustainable practices?
Yeah, so so I could talk to convenience, and part of it is also like the way customers make decisions, purchase decisions. So it's almost split a little bit into, we've found that there's a different customer experience and a different decision process and different barriers when it comes to ordering online versus in person. So if you think of yourself ordering something online, it doesn't have to be food, but whatever, we find that price is really typically like that, oh, you have to pay a little bit extra, is typically not a huge barrier. Like when we look at online orders, because within reason, if it's an extra like $30 on top of a $20 item. But when you have a small like additional fee, it tends to not be digested by the customer as a super huge departure from what they would pay otherwise. And when it's online, it always feels a bit different than if you're in person ordering and you're kind of seeing that happen at the time. So I would say on the convenience factor for online ordering, the biggest pieces of feedback that we ask for from customers is, because we have a very engaged customer base and they send us feedback forms, is more drop-off locations, so more return spots. And that is kind of part and parcel of just growing and not being able to be everywhere from the very beginning. So more convenient return spots, or just more in general. And then more restaurants is the other piece that we always get the feedback on, more restaurants, more channels. And essentially that kind of comes down to two choices. Like, are you trying to increase the number of people? Like, is your focus really increasing the number of people ordering? Or what about those like 10, 20, 30% of people that are super bought in and just want to spend more of their wallet aligned with their values at more of the places they shop, right? So there's like sort of two different areas of focus you can think of there, but both relate to convenience of either increasing the amount of times someone already bought in orders, or then increasing the convenience to those that maybe like are not as bought in yet, and maybe are like not kind of like a 9 out of 10 bought in, but are a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 bought in. And then my last comment is really to the in-person ordering and dine in, is, yeah, I think it's actually like not as much convenience because you're there. It's the price barrier. So like thinking of programs, for example, or credits to restaurants, to be able to offer it without cost, I think would be it is like one of the biggest pieces. And then I think having a system, and actually this is one of the learnings, like a teaser, but one of the learnings that we had from some of this work and other work is making sure that there's no additional barrier to like scanning a whole bunch of stuff if you're just dining in. It just seems like a lot of work. And so we're actually we have like early stage designs for a solution that doesn't involve a whole bunch of scanning and stuff and actually works to build price in, whether it's government covering that or the restaurant and how they kind of pass that on. But anyways, so those are some of our comments and learnings.
Excellent, thank you. So I will do a follow-up question on that. So you mentioned a lot of great topics about convenience and how customers now are like how we can make customers increase their participation. So could you share your insights on what are your current challenges? Like companies like yours, what are your current challenges in promoting sustainable practice, and what kind of support do you need to overcome this challenge? What can other groups help you and achieve more customers or having more mainstream participation?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to list there's tons of opportunities that I frame, challenges that I frame as opportunities. But I think in terms of like how in terms of promotion, um, one of the top things that that restaurants say, I still speak with a lot of our restaurants, is the new ones or the ones that are considering it is, well, do customers really want this? Or well, let's see, like they launch and they're like, well, let's see if customers order. And I think there's a lot that like customers can speak a lot with their interactions with restaurants, like whether they're bringing their own containers or just saying like, have you heard of supply, for example, or have you heard of reusables, or will you use my reusable containers? Like I do that all the time. Like my local business is not, I walk into some of them. We don't, work together for dine in, but I'm always that person that brings my own containers. And I won't go to the ones, most of them are pretty good, but I won't go to the ones that don't offer BYO. And so I think that like the more that restaurants and food vendors and et cetera hear that, I think the more that they're willing to, it's a familiar concept and they're willing to take it up. So I think there's a lot that customers can do. And then I think just other industry players, like if you're events, for example, like really look at the options there. And the more that people see it around them, whether it's business owners or not, I think that helps a lot too. I don't know if like it's a massive marketing campaign. I think there's more the city can do from like a policy perspective, personally.
Excellent, thank you. Emily, I would like to ask you very briefly, what your insights on the impact of target waste reduction policies and the potential benefits for food service businesses. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting listening to all the other panelists here because, we've got some great business leaders coming up with ways to like reduce waste and trying to shift customer behavior and provide new services and new ways of doing things to address waste. I think it speaks to the drive that customers have and businesses have to reduce waste. And even though some of the numbers might be small, the numbers you shared earlier, Rafaela, like just adding it up over time, 20,000 items can be avoided if just these 6 businesses adopted a little bit more returnable takeout options. So I think it shows that like these small things add up, but it can also be really hard. And I think some of the challenges that I'm hearing mentioned by the different people here is getting customers to adopt it. And this is where I'm really excited by the options for policymakers to sort of set the standards. In Toronto now, all restaurants have to accept a BYO cup starting on March 1st. So this removes one barrier of people saying, oh, will they accept my cup? Now all the major chains have to have a process for doing that. And that helps shift customer behavior. And it takes the burden off small independent businesses. It levels the playing field so the big guys have to do it and the little ones do it. And that can hopefully sort of shift customer behavior. So I think there's some really exciting ways that we can see like the leaders are showing what's possible. So people see we can do this. There really are waste-free ways to eat our food and have amazing food at home or on the go. But we need to I think the policy needs to follow and really kind of make this the standard. And it shouldn't just be up to us and the small businesses to have to struggle to figure out how to do this. I don't know if that answered your question, Rafaela, but
yes, it is great. I'm just thinking here, brainstorm how we want to end it up this, because I had so many questions that I want to ask you all, and our time it's a little short right now. So I will just go over one question very quickly for all of you, and needs to be brief. So before we open up for audience questions, I would like to hear from each of you one more time. What types of policies should Toronto implement to better support waste reduction in the food service industry, and why? Mitap, do you want to go first? Oh, you were in mute. You're still mute.
Hi.
All right.
So the most biggest challenge is leaving the comfort zone for the customers. In Turkey, there is a poem that it's a very short one, is that no one had time to think about the fine things. I defined with this poem. So they are very happy to hear this, to make reusables, to accept them, to make discounts. They love it, but they don't bring their reusables. Very little. It increased after your posters. You made beautiful reels in Instagram for us, videos. They helped a lot. I should say that they helped a lot. We always talk with our customers, but someone outside us needs to talk and say. And I believe that this must be city, this must be federal government. Consumers need some pressure, unfortunately. They love to be a part of this program, but they don't do their part. Very little one, they make their part. So we need help from the authorities, from the universities. Why it increased last year? Because there was some reusable cup restrictions, and talking about the bags, plastics bags, lots of, we hear in media, in television, in radio, they were talking about this. So people most aware and okay, I need to do this today, but then yesterday they forget about it. So my last sentence is we need help to make this. We can't do alone.
Customer needs
Thank
more.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Jody, what do you think? What?
If we start like with the help of the government or city or federal or provincial or city officials, if we can provide free containers, one free container per child at school, and educate them. Sometimes I mentioned this to Megan earlier too, when she came to the restaurant, that sometimes parents learn more from their kids. So what's being taught, but they're being taught this at school. If we can go to all these schools and then have all these UFT students on campaign, they can go there. It's a part of their volunteer work or whatever, and then educate them and then provide one free container to each child, and that child will be, so each house that has one child has one container, and once parents see how convenient it is and how useful it is and how healthy it is going to be versus plastic, and then if they have 3 kids, they're having 3 containers and they can use them at home too for other things. I think these containers will be in every household.
For them to use in other restaurants as well.
Yes, and then they can use them for the rest. And once they see the convenience and the positive outcome of these containers, the parents can buy them. So instead of renting them to the restaurants, by giving them free, with cities' help, to all these kids, they're taking them home. And then parents see this and they can buy these containers too, and they can use them at home on the weekends, whatever leftovers. They can take their lunches. And once it has reached every household, it will be very, very easy to get rid of the plastic completely.
Thank you. I think involving kids is always a good thing for the future.
And schools and TDSP schools, they're
Yes.
spending so much money. It's like if you getting them in bulk, the price will be less too. And how many schools are and how many students are. And based upon that, every household will get to, and then friends and moms talking to each other. And even people who do not have kids, they will get educated through their friends.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. I think communication is also key. Sharing the word. Megan, very briefly, do you want to share anything else before we open for Q&A? And Emily, the same about my question with what types of policy should the run implemented to better support waste reduction?
My only comment is just Emily can speak more tangibly on everything.
All right, Emily.
Also related, but yeah, no, my only comment was basically just that, for us, I think that we've seen that restaurant adoption kind of kickstarts the flywheel of getting more people, more customers familiar with things and on board. And so for me, it has to start with incentives and make sense for the restaurants and the businesses. And so whatever governments can do policy wise, or yeah, to make it make sense or be even an incentive to restaurants, like I don't know, a credit or something like that.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, I'm always excited when people are talking about policy because it's really easy when you're an environmentalist to get bogged down in guilt and think you have to solve everything, but we need to remember that we all feel the same way. We all want to reduce waste, and so collectively we can push for the sort of society change and the policies that we need. I just want to point out that there's some people who've joined our webinar today who are from other municipalities in Canada that have actually passed regulations that require restaurants to have reusables for dine-in, and have more policies around reusables for takeout and stuff. So I think what's great is just like these examples right here in Toronto, when we see what's possible, it kind of opens people's minds up like, oh, I can get takeout. I can get a delicious coffee and I don't have to have it in a disposable cup. I can get amazing food and bring it home and I don't need to have a disposable container. And then we can start thinking about policies in other places, like major fast food chains that have to serve their fries and burgers in a reusable container. So I think it's when policy, we can learn from what's happening in other parts around the world and across Canada. And I think that's the kind of thing that we want to advocate to our local elected officials. Toronto's working on a new single-use regulation, like the next phase of it, so we can all make our voices heard to our local politicians. And then also across the country, it'd be great to have national regulations for those Environment Canada people listening.
Thank you. Susan, I think we are now. Thanks so much, panelists. You provide a lot of great discussion. We now can open for Q&A for our participants. If you have any questions,
Yeah,
I will
so
the slide.
sorry, just to remind everyone, if you're looking to ask a question, and there were a few in the chat already I've saved, you can add those to the chat. As you may have guessed, we'll try to get to as many as we can. And then we'll alternate between, if people would prefer to ask a question out loud, you can do so. And how that will work is use the raise hand feature, and I see that there's a hand already. So we'll go to the chat first, and then we'll go to that first raised hand and let you know, take you off mute, ask your question, and then we'll mute you again as the reply. And here that is Raphael is setting up those instructions again. So we'll go to the chat question first, because it was asked a few moments ago. From Grace in the Parkdale High Park area in Toronto. Was curious, so there are returnable container systems for supply specific to your product. So maybe I'll direct this question to you first, Megan, in case it's come up. It's more of a question of, is there a way to do this kind of system as more of a common resource, perhaps related to municipalities? And yeah, feel free to, if you're able to answer that one. If not, there's another panelist who is informed.
Sure, was that related to a mutually used like drop off?
I'll just read the question out loud verbatim. To gather returnable containers, could there be a way of placing a return bin on the street where a number of businesses could share it as a common resource?
Yeah, I mean, if the city will do that, sure.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't argue. I would say like the from learnings just in other cities and stuff like that, garbage
Yeah.
becomes the problem when it's on
Uh-huh.
public premises. So you'll get a lot of that, and it's going to be the cleaning costs will be exponentially higher. So you have to be kind of like thoughtful about all these sort of random nuances.
Yep.
But yeah, if there was like a, I think I saw someone comment like maybe a BIA sponsored one, like yeah, increasing convenience and availability for sure. I wouldn't say no to that.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's really great. Like to recognize things are possible. It's just figuring out those other variables that you may not consider at first. Like, of course, is the bin going to then generate waste or not? And how can we mitigate that before it becomes an issue? Okay, I'm going to move on to a hand raised. Rebecca Allen, if you're ready, I will unmute you. You can ask your question out loud, and whoever feels most appropriate to answer. If that's clear, I'll direct it. And if it's unclear, we'll do our best to start speaking without talking over each other. So go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi, I live in Southern California. I do outreach and education with cities that have already passed a reusable foodware ordinance. And what I hear over and over from businesses, as Jody had said, is that their words are COVID is not over, that everything moved to takeout and delivery during COVID, and that it never went back to dine in the way it was pre-pandemic. And I'm wondering if there has ever, if you all have done any outreach or any kind of campaigns to encourage more dine-in, to kind of get back to those pre-pandemic levels, because the entire Uber Eats takeout world seems to be such a sore spot. A lot of these jurisdictions I work with have reusables for dine-in and then compostables or recyclables for takeout, but it just still seems like the level of takeout and delivery is kind of off the charts.
Thank you so much for that. I'll lower your hand, and then if
Thank
you
you.
could mute yourself. That's a great question. And there was also another comment about is there going to be more dependence on these food delivery apps? So maybe we can approach those comments together. I'm
Sorry.
looking maybe the GOT, maybe you could have a comment as a restaurant owner.
Yes, I really want to cut it down because servers are not making enough tips and they are there all day. But then these delivery drivers are making more tips without giving any service. Like, yes, they provide the food, but then there isn't any other skill that servers have. So what we've done, increased Uber prices to 20%. Plus, we charge them $8.99 fee just to discourage people from ordering online and then coming to the restaurant, so that they can come to the restaurant, and then it's less plastic too. But I think it's they are in their comfort zone now after getting delivery at their doorsteps, and then it's hard to change their mind. But what we did, increase the prices so that it discourages them from ordering takeout. And that's, I don't know what else I can do.
No, and as you might had mentioned it maybe before we started, but it's not just up to one group to do
No.
that. Thinking of that collective way we can all.
Yes, we all have to think it together, and then maybe by brainstorming, maybe other people who have joined today, they have a solution to this issue too.
Yeah,
they can share.
And I like that you offered not just the pollution perspective, but also thinking about the people behind the food as well. So the server, yeah. As we're not wrapping up just yet, but I did want to ask our speakers, if you are comfortable, if you have a way for people to reach out to you after this, if they think of a question we don't get to, you could put that in the chat directly. That's up to you if you have an email that people can reach out to. Let's go to the next note in the chat. I don't see a hand raised. I thought oh, there, it's still there. Okay, so I'll go back to the chat, and then we'll go to Rafat, and then we'll probably should start to wrap up. So someone was asking about offering compostable containers, and I wanted to make sure we got to that because that was part of our messaging. Maybe I'll direct that either to Emily or Rafaela, who both are well knowledgeable on this subject.
You were asking about Grace question?
Is anything being done offering compostable containers? So
Okay. My name is Rifat Fatma. I am a grassroots leader in Flemington Park. I have a small group, grassroots group, Lovers of Planet Earth. I have 10 members in my group, and I am going to celebrate the Ramin Days. I bought 10 mugs, 10 cups for my group. And because all the panelists did a great job and great ideas, I think it is a very small idea. Reuse, save money. Cost of serving one coffee cup per day for a year, $55–56 with the lids. Because in 1 year there is 365 days. If we buy a $4–6 cup and use it in the coffee shop, wash it and reuse it, we will save the money, we will save the environment.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that perspective. There's a lot of things for us to consider, and I've seen some other ideas that we won't be able to get to read, but please everyone be reading the chat, because Manaz has offered some great reflections on their experience, as well as Grace again has shared some new thoughts. I just wanted to, maybe we'll do the last question, just a note about compostable containers, because I think it really is an important thing, because that comes up a lot when we talk about other ways to reduce waste.
So compostable waste containers. So here in the city of Toronto, the compostable containers go actually in the garbage. So it is not, they don't have the facility to compost. So it needs to go to the garbage. So at the end, you are still it's ended up in the landfill, so it is not a big advantage. So my point of view is we could try to improve as much as possible the reusable alternatives, how we can make this as a possibility, how we can make this a mainstream, how we can make more people participating, how we can make customers getting excited about this option. So I think that's what I envisioning in the future, that we have a city where customers do more dining, or when they are doing takeout, why not having a returnable one that you can drop off in some locations close to your home, and with more restaurants participating, with like great big chains like McDonald's, I don't know which chains we want to say, but people will see more that happening, and they will get more excited, and they will have more locations where they can drop off their containers. So that's going to be something mainstream, like very normal for customers to do it. So that's what I'm envisioning. I think we can move away from single use, regardless the material, as much as we can, and try to go into the reusable future, and which is the present. We are doing a lot, but we can still increase in restaurants here in the city.
Awesome. I think that's a really great note to end on, unless Emily, if you had anything to add on that, I'll give you a moment, but otherwise we'll start to wrap up, because we want to respect everyone's time today, but we know this is a very exciting topic. Did you have anything to add on the compostable aspect, or? No, okay. I know you both share a lot of the same perspectives. So Rafael, if you could just move to the last final slide. Some of our speakers have already shared how to reach out to them specifically if there was something you wanted to chat about. But we did want to thank all of them for sharing their time with us today, as well as throughout this entire research and project. It's been a huge undertaking and a lot of considerations about bringing everyone on board and how. So we really appreciated having this talk today, and we'll have 3 additional sources of pollution and research to cover over the next few months. Our next one will be coming up on October 29th about pre-production plastic pellets, which create all of these plastic materials. If you haven't already, I know some of you have, it's the very same Eventbrite link, which is in the chat. So if you are now inspired to learn about other sources of plastic pollution and what we're doing, you can register for those. It'll be the same Zoom link. So we hope to see many of you there. And please, of course, with our team in general, stay in touch. And we're also happy to point you in the direction. If you're looking for more information, we can do what we can to answer you. So again, thank you everyone for coming today, and we'll hopefully catch up very soon. Thank you again.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.